Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabela with Hard Lens Media. I have a very special interview for all of you returning back to our show. Jen Perelman, thank you so much for coming back. In fact, the last time we spoke, you were on a car ride to making sure that there was election integrity. So it was probably the most unique interviews we've ever done. Please check that interview out after the show, after this interview. But I think it's important for our viewers and subscribers to really understand what's actually happening in Florida, because you are running up against Debbie Wasserman Shultz. So I think let's just get an update, essentially, is what happened with the aftermath of March 17th, that dreaded primary, at least for us here in Illinois. What was it like for you, especially for in your candidacy?
We had people going to the polls, but it was very quiet. It wasn't a typical primary. I mean, there were clearly no lines anywhere. I mean, it was very slow flowing. We did hand out, in a sterilized manner, we did hand out cards, as people were on their way out, thanking them, reminding them that we have another primary in August. But it was definitely not a good turnout for voting.
All right. So I think it's important also for our viewers, subscribers to also understand too, because with Debbie Wasserman Shultz, being in Congress right now, and of course her actions in 2016, I think a lot of people want to see her kind of kicked out of office. So essentially right now, what is the ground game for your campaign? What is really happening, so that our viewers kind of have an idea of really what's going to happen when the general election comes around?
We are definitely in a very interesting and unique situation. It's like there's really not a pandemic playbook for running a grassroots campaign. And, we definitely have suffered by, not being able to have a ground game and not being able to canvass, because that is definitely how progressives tend to, bring out voters. Mm-hmm. So we are relying on phone bankers and social media and doing as many of these interviews as we can. We'll do some mailers, but it's hard. It's definitely, we're definitely playing with a handicap.
All right. Now, the thing is, we could take this whole interview and make it easy about, trashing Debbie Wasserman Shultz, saying how terrible it is. Well, that's easy. But let's talk about solutions, because that's what people want to hear from their elected leaders. And of course, with COVID-19 and this economic depression that we're entering into, obviously, there's a lot of things that people are caring about, most notably Medicare for all. So essentially, I know when I last spoke to you, you were on an idea for single-payer healthcare. How has that evolved since then with COVID-19 and the amount of people that are afraid to go to the hospital, and what the traumatic stress our first responders are going through right now? What exactly is your plan for Medicare for all, and how would you potentially fight for it, even should you be elected into the Congress?
Well, first and foremost, I would sign the bill that's currently sitting there, Pramila Jayapal's bill, that's single-payer healthcare, because I actually like that policy. But right now, this pandemic is in our favor. And when I say that, I mean as policy-wise and progressive-wise, and being able to really, move on this. People are seeing it very firsthand, not to mention with all the newly uninsured people. I was watching you guys earlier, and, we could have up to 50 million people that are unemployed. So,
God forbid.
But, we are now being faced with the fact that we have no social safety net, and this is something that is going to now be affecting a wider range of people. So I think for us, it really does allow us to control the narrative, because now these issues are really in people's faces and are undeniable. My stance on healthcare has been from the beginning, there can't be a profit motive in healthcare. So that has to be removed first and foremost. And I think there are different systems in different countries of single payer that work, and I don't swear to know the exact perfect thing, but I know that we're quite capable of providing it. We have the resources and we have the capability. So there's no excuse at this point.
So now there's also a lot of talk about UBI. That name, that idea, that policy has been gaining a lot of favor. So I think it's important for our viewers to understand what's your position on UBI, and if you do support it, what would you do to make sure that, one, it still keeps up with inflation, and two, it remains sort of more in the power of the people, so that corporations and the government doesn't have full absolute control over people's lives? Where do you stand on UBI?
In the immediate right now, I stand on we should be getting at least $2,000 a month until this is over. That's where I stand right now in terms of dealing with the current crisis, like what Canada is doing, like what other countries seem to be able to provide for their people that somehow we just can't seem to provide. But in general, I'm okay with UBI. I'm open to the idea. I think it's definitely worth exploring. I have no problem with it. I would support it. But more than that, to me, I am more supportive of the idea of jobs guarantee and minimum wage that's a $15 living wage. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have those things and healthcare, that the UBI isn't necessarily as much of an imperative. And again, I am open to it. I am not averse to it. I think it's great, but I don't like it where people are wanting that to substitute for Medicare for all and for a living wage. So I just like to prioritize the other.
So we'll also have to deal with the fact that, our Congress, they're not going to show up to work until May 4th. I mean, it's good. It's good to know that we have such keen-eyed eagles guarding our wall and protecting our liberties from all those that want to somehow take it away. But yet this same Congress chose to bail out the corporations. They basically let them run away with the entire bank. It just left us holding, everything. So where do you stand on the stimulus bill that was passed? And how would you vote for it? Should you, or would you potentially, in a hypothetical scenario, be in that Congress during the same time? What would you do? And where do you stand on this stimulus bill that was given to the American people and to basically the corporations?
You're talking about the first the first giveaway, the corporate giveaway.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it was absurd. If I'm to think that I have the information that there was, then no, that is not anything that I would have supported. However, I am also aware that there are things that we don't know and things that are done behind the scenes and deals that are made. Now, why they can't be transparent, that's another issue. So it's easy to say what I would do, but given what we know. But I don't know what I don't know. So, but no, it was an unacceptable corporate theft per usual. But more importantly, is anybody surprised?
Well, yeah, I think at this point, I mean, of course, we always talk about how in the United States Senate and House, our politicians are basically on the phone 90% of the time asking for more donations. So, yeah, it's good to know that the Congress was looking out for its number one constituents, and that is the people within the top 1%. But there's another thing I also want to bring up, too. And I mentioned COVID-19. I mentioned the fact that we're entering into a Great Depression. It's a 1-2 punch. But the final punch that probably no one's really paying attention to is the real threat of climate change. And, of course, Florida has unfortunately dealt with, really deadly hurricanes in the past. They've been getting deadlier as the years go on. Where do you stand on climate change and also investing into green technologies? And what are some of your concerns in the fact that right now climate change isn't really being talked about as much right now?
It's funny that it isn't, because literally the water is rising. We are technically at the baseline, like where I am will be underwater. So, and instead of addressing that, all we have is nonstop development, nonstop construction over on the coast where our infrastructure is already crumbling underneath in terms of sewage. And they're dredging out more and more of the natural flora that takes care of cleansing the estuaries. There's sea grapes and mangroves. And those are very important. And when you build these marinas, you have to dredge that out, and it ends up killing the estuaries, which are where all the little sea critters breed, right? So it's just really devastating. It's what stuff that goes on here. And nobody is speaking up against that. Nobody in a position of power here. None of the delegation down here, none of them support a Green New Deal. And I think that says something, about your representatives, that they can't get behind that kind of vision.
All right. So I do want to read this one super chat from Kate, $2. We actually got a couple of super chats, but $2 super chat first from Kate. She says, what gets people to flip their vote to you versus Debbie Wasserman Shultz? I think it's a very important question because look, right now, everyone's kind of handicapped. Of course, Debbie Wasserman Shultz has corporations backing her up. So what are you doing right now to tell voters like, hey, I'm on your side?
Yeah, the biggest difference between her and me, which is the base of everything, is that I am not corporate bought. I can't be bought. So the fact that my entire campaign is small dollar donations and just regular everyday people, that's who I answer to. So right there, that's the key difference between, her and I. But, and there's people that are going to support her just because they do. And it's based on, emotion or personality or whatever their comfort factor. And that's fine. But basically I am on the opposite of every ideology she has. She takes money from big pharma and private insurance. I support single payer healthcare. She takes money from big sugar and next era energy. I support a Green New Deal. She takes money from for-profit prisons. I support abolishing for-profit prisons and decriminalizing marijuana. She refers to marijuana as a gateway drug. So I would say, I'll pull some of her voters just based on some of them that are probably, just wanting another safe kind of nice Jewish girl option. But for the most part, the people that are going to support me are not really her people.
I understand. So I think it's also important for us to also bring up the fact that there is the deal of money in politics. And of course, there's all these corporations right now supporting the incumbents, the DCCC, obviously making it very clear that they want to, keep the system as is. What kind of pushback, especially now, have you been getting from the DCCC and the establishment from basically trying to give this to Debbie Wasserman Shultz? What kind of pushback have you been getting from them?
I haven't had anything blatant happen. I mean, in the very beginning, when we first started running and hiring staff, we did have a problem where the person who was going to be doing our compliance was scared and she wouldn't do it because she relies on jobs from the DCCC. Like, that's her livelihood. And I don't fault anybody that. So, but other than that, really, just, I get the cold shoulder. I'm not, I get the cold shoulder, and that was something that I knew was going to happen in terms of our local party establishment. That's just the way it is here. And really, I wouldn't say anything in particular has happened to us, or, just we're going to be ignored. Press isn't going to cover us, the typical things.
Right. So seeing how also there's a lack of real election integrity in this country, and varies from state to state, of course. And we know a little bit about Illinois' history, but with regards to Florida, making sure that your voters and your supporters, like, their vote is actually counted. What has your campaign been doing to really prepare itself for any kind of election fraud, any kind of voter suppression? What have you guys been doing to making sure that there's still election integrity in Florida?
I think that on a local level, our Progressive Caucus has been doing a really good job in dealing with that. They joined together with our local Republican organization down here, and they have created something called a citizens election audit. And it's a test market for an app. We're one of the first few that they've done. They did our presidential primary. They did a couple in 2018. And it's similar to the app that Bernie used for his people on the ground, where they were keeping track of their own numbers pretty closely so that you're able to really point out what the discrepancies are. But in addition to that, we have a new supervisor of elections down here. Not that that's the be all end all, but there are several variables in our favor. I think the key being people being very aware of what's going on, and we have a lot more citizen oversight than we ever had in the past. So, I mean, really, and we also are doing a very big vote by mail. Obviously, we were doing that before this anyway. That was always going to be a big push of ours. So, there's always some sort of risk. I mean, we've all been living in the same world since 2000, and I think we can see that elections are not necessarily all exactly fair and proper.
Right. I think another thing to look at this, what has been your biggest takeaway since COVID-19 has basically impacted the way a lot of progressives are running their election? I mean, what have you learned? What has inspired you? What has made you take a step back and realize, okay, this is how things are going to be now? What have you learned along the way?
I think, that it's when you have a message that's a really good message and you stand for something, that there are so many different ways that you can get that out. And yeah, I do think it's going to be hard for us not being able to canvass, but I've been amazed at how people have picked up in terms of social media and really helped out, things like you guys and everybody really making an effort to behind the scenes, because we're not going to be the mainstream people, to really promote and get the word out. But the amount of people that we got that came in and volunteer and that are phone banking for us is amazing. And I think that we are definitely benefiting from people being stuck inside. We are. And we're benefiting from Bernie suspending his campaign because we got a windfall of volunteers that were right off of that. So, you know, it's sort of taking lemons and making lemonade, but we definitely have a lot of interest from people around the country. And now that our game is mostly phone banking, it's working out pretty well.
All right. So I think there's also another thing too, because, you know, let's face it, it's okay to bash the establishment here and there, but what are some of your concerns, or at least what's your number one concern? Should Debbie Wasserman Shultz be reelected and somehow continue on her career in Congress where she's supporting the neoliberal agenda? What's your concern about her being reelected?
Her in particular, I think that, you know, what we were talking about earlier about the climate issue, I think her in particular in this district, it's very troubling. It's troubling to me that she doesn't take any sort of initiative on climate issues whatsoever. And we know why. You know, we know why. When you're being paid by fossil fuel or Florida Power and Light, you're not going to be on the forefront of alternative fuel sources. And I think that that is very crippling to us down here. And it isn't just her. It isn't just her. There is a South Florida contingency, and they are just not on this. So I think for us, it is imperative down here to have people that are taking initiative. We don't even have solar initiative in this state where public buildings are built with solar panels. Nobody is pushing for this. It's just at the point where it's obvious why, right? We know why. So I think that is one of the things. And just in general, we need to get people out that are on the payroll. It is not working for us to have people on the payroll. Absolutely. They're on our payroll. They're supposed to be working for us.
And I think a lot of people can agree with that, because we got to break this neoliberal system. And the DCCC has already made it clear where they stand on the issue. They want to play their favoritism. So I think as a final question for our viewers and subscribers, so they can learn more about your campaign, find you online and social media, where can they go so they can volunteer, and making sure that, hey, if we can't vote in Florida, at least let's help you out. Let's try and fight for that better future. Where can they go find you on for your campaign website, your Twitter account? Where can they go?
Yeah, so the website is gen2020.com, and Twitter is genfl23.
All right, fantastic.
So that's and really what we need are people to sign up and do phone banking for us. Obviously, we need donations. We'd like small dollar donations. We say $23 for District 23. Some of the people that know me, I get a lot of $4.20. You know, it just really, we're just very grateful for the amount of people that are helping us. I think we have like 5,000 individual donations and it's every state in the country. The only state I haven't gotten is Wyoming.
Wyoming, where are you at?
I don't know, but I'm just blaming Dick Cheney in my mind for it, you know?
I think it's fair enough. It's okay. It's a crazy world we live in where the government's revealing UFOs, and we got COVID-19 and economic depression. Why not? It might be a safe bet. Maybe Dick Cheney's just waking up one day and be like, who knows? So it's very good to hear that you're actually running this campaign. We're so glad to do a follow-up with you, and we do wish you all the best for the general election so that you can continue on and actually get Debbie Wasserman Shultz out of office. But before we end this live stream, we actually got a couple of super chats. Some of them are not directed to you, but, you know, we feel it's only fair because, you know, people who help out our channel, it's for independent media. So we got two $20 super chats from Dan Campbell. Let's see if we could try to pull up the first one. If we can't, there's always the second one that we can pull up. All right, I guess so. So first $20 super chat. Obviously, I can't find it right now, but we got a second one. Says, I don't care for AOC, but she's the only politician who understands the value of automation and that we should be working less and receiving dividends from the value of automation. Ultimately, wage labor should fade away. Interesting point to bring up. We got a $5 super chat from good friend of the show, Ben Riley. Remember, you can't fight the establishment and expect them not to fight back. Good luck, though, and that's probably directed towards you. So Thank you so much, Ben Riley, for the $5 super chat. And you know what? Jen Perelman has been in this fight. She already walked out of the primary. She's going into the general election, still up against Debbie Wasserman.
No, I have a primary.
You still have another primary?
My primary is August 18th. My primary is August 18th, and you have to be registered as a Dem by July 18th. But yeah, we have separate primary here.
Okay. Thank you for that correction, because I still have PTSD from the March 17th primary. It was a disaster here in Illinois, and Yeah.
You know, we're nervous for that here. You know, obviously it's, you know, questionable. It's all questionable. But yeah, August 18th is mine. And but that's the one that matters. Our general doesn't really matter here. We're so gerrymandered blue.
All right. So, okay. So we also got another super chat too from Suffragam, here from Miami, Florida, $10 super chat. I hope you win your election, Ms. Perelman. Are you running an all-inclusive campaign reaching out to single moms in minority communities? Thank you, Hard Lens Media. Great. So I think that's a question directly to you. Are you running an all-inclusive campaign reaching out to single moms in minority communities? What is going on?
I would say I more specifically reach out to single moms and minority communities. I would say that is the whole point, not just single moms and minorities, but disenfranchised and people that need the most help. Mm-hmm. I feel like something that justice is one of the key components of my campaign, criminal justice reform. And so when you talk about minority communities, I think that's predominantly who we are for.
Mm-hmm. And I also got another thing too. We got one of my teams managed to pull up Dan Campbell's other $20 super chat. Ventura is the only potential candidate who is able to think outside the capitalism, socialism dichotomy. We need a complete restructured economic system. So that was from Dan Campbell. So he gave us another $20 super chat, but I don't think it's really directed to this interview, but it's an interesting point to bring up.
No, it's a very good point.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there we go. So thank you everyone who's been donating for the super chats. Thank you, Jen Perelman. I think one last time, can we pull up her campaign website so that people can know where to find her on social media? It's www.gen2020.com. And again, your primary is on August
18th.
August 18th. All right, everyone. Well, let's push forward.
Everyone has time to phone bank for us between now and then.
All right. So if we want to get Debbie Wasserman Shultz out of office, it's time for us to step up and let's actually do something about it. Jen, all the best to you on your campaign.
Thank you so much.
All the best to you guys. This is Kit with Hard Lens Media. Peace, everyone.